All right, let's dive right into this explainer and unpack the absolutely fascinating and sometimes frustrating psychological mechanisms working against our bank accounts. We're going to explore the psychology of wealth and try to figure out why the seemingly simple act of saving money can literally feel like trying to climb a mountain.
Look, we've all been there, right? Have you ever checked your bank account a few days before payday, felt that sudden, sickening drop in your stomach, and just asked yourself, where did all my money go? It's this universal, guilt-inducing feeling. You probably promised yourself that this time would be different, that you'd finally start building some wealth, but somehow, the money is just gone.
Which brings us to Chapter 1, the disappearing paycheck.
First off, I want to assure you right off the bat that your disappearing paycheck is not a moral failing. It's not because you're lazy, and it definitely isn't because you just don't understand basic financial advice. When we ask where the money went, it is rarely because of some massive, catastrophic blunder. I mean, you didn't accidentally buy a luxury car, book a surprise midnight trip to Hawaii, right? Instead, it's more like death by 1,000 small conveniences. A couple of meals out, an Amazon binge, a streaming renewal you forgot about, and of course, the infamous, I had a hard day, so I deserve this small treat.
Moving on to Chapter 2, your survival brain.
To really understand why we fall for those daily conveniences, we need a major paradigm shift. Here it is. Human beings are simply not naturally designed to save money. We are designed to survive. Look at the stark contrast here. Our ancient, evolutionary brain is constantly screaming at us, use resources immediately to survive today. Because, if you found food thousands of years ago, you had to eat it right then and there. But our modern wealth-building brain, it's asking us to save resources for a future that isn't even guaranteed. Honestly, planning for retirement is an entirely unnatural act that fights against our deepest, most hardwired survival instincts.
And the modern world takes full advantage of that instinct by constantly triggering it. Just track this timeline of consumerism with me. Centuries ago, we only used physical cash. A few decades ago, credit cards hit the scene. A few years ago, we shifted almost entirely to digital payments. And today, one-click purchases. Boom, it's at your door. We've built this incredibly powerful consumer system where companies literally spend billions of dollars to make spending your money as absolutely frictionless as possible.
And this leads us to a fascinating psychological concept called the pain of paying. Simply put, the harder it feels to spend money, the less likely we are to do it. Handing over physical cash literally creates a sensation of pain in our brains. It hurts. But as you reduce that physical friction, you drastically increase the amount of money spent. Things like one-click purchases intentionally eliminate this pain entirely, tricking our survival brains into parting with our resources effortlessly, without giving us even a single second to second-guess it.
That brings us to Chapter 3, the lifestyle inflation trap. Okay, it is time to dismantle a massive myth. The idea that simply earning a higher income will automatically solve all of your financial stress. Actually, the real trap is lifestyle inflation. This happens when your rising expenses immediately expand to meet any increase in your income. Imagine someone gets a raise from $40,000 to $60,000 a year. Things feel great for a bit, but then they quickly upgrade their apartment, maybe buy a nicer car, grab some better clothes. The expenses just magically rise to meet that new income, and suddenly they're trapped, feeling just as stressed out financially as they were before.
Let's put this trap into perspective. Picture a teacher earning $60,000 a year who saves consistently versus someone earning $150,000 who spends absolutely everything they make. This brilliantly illustrates that the gap between what you earn and what you spend matters far, far more than the actual size of the paycheck itself. The teacher, despite earning significantly less on paper, is actually the one building long-term wealth.
I really want to let this powerful reframe sink in for a second. Wealth isn't what you spend. Wealth is what you keep. We are so incredibly conditioned to associate wealth with visible consumption, right? The designer clothes, the luxury cars, the exotic vacations. But true wealth is actually invisible. It's the money you consciously chose not to spend.
But man, ignoring that urge for visible consumption is tough. And that's because of our brain's reward system, specifically something called present bias. This is the human tendency to prioritize an immediate dopamine reward over some long-term future benefit. Imagine you have a deeply annoying boss, or you get stuck in terrible gridlock traffic. You feel stressed, right? So you open an app and you just buy something. Why? Because spending $50 today gives you immediate emotional relief, which feels vastly superior in the moment compared to the incredibly boring act of saving that $50 for a retirement that's decades away.
All right, let's get to the good stuff. Chapter 4, How to Actually Save.
Now that we know all the psychological hurdles, it's time for an actionable playbook to finally outsmart our own biology.
Think of it like this. Building wealth is exactly like physical fitness. Nobody gets healthy just because they exercised one single time, and nobody gets wealthy because they saved once. It isn't about finding some secret, magical stock investment. It requires small, repeated, sometimes incredibly boring actions sustained over a long period. Habits determine your financial outcomes way more than occasional, massive decisions.
To prove the sheer power of those boring habits, check out this number, $18,000. How do you get there? By saving a mere $10 a day over just 5 years. $10, that's an amount most of us can and do spend on a fancy sandwich or a coffee without a second thought. But repeated consistently, those tiny everyday actions snowball into massive outcomes. And by the way, that's 18 grand before even considering any sort of investment growth.
But building that habit requires a shift on a much deeper level. You actually have to shift your identity to being a saver. Successful people don't just rely on daily willpower. I mean, nobody wakes up every morning pumped to skip purchases. Instead, they shift their identity entirely. When you genuinely see yourself as a financially responsible saver, making good financial decisions becomes completely automatic. Saving suddenly stops feeling like a punishment, and it just starts feeling normal.
So here is the exact playbook to build that new identity. Step 1. Save first. Don't wait to save your leftover money at the end of the month because guess what? There's never any leftover money. Step 2. Automate the whole shebang. Automation takes the emotion completely out of your financial choices. Step 3. Control lifestyle inflation. When your income goes up, make absolutely sure your savings go up too. And step 4. Value those small amounts. Consistency is going to matter way more than perfection here.
As we wrap up the core thesis of this explainer, I want you to remember this. The greatest financial battle isn't happening in the stock market. It's happening right there in your mind. Every single purchase you make is a conscious choice between your present comfort and your future security. We don't struggle to save because we're inherently bad with money. We struggle because we're human, fighting against incredibly powerful survival instincts and endless billion-dollar marketing campaigns.
At the end of the day, mastering your psychology isn't just about accumulating a larger number in a bank account, because wealth isn't just more money, it's more freedom. When you start making slightly better decisions repeatedly over a long period of time, you are literally buying your ultimate freedom. So I'm going to leave you with this one question to think about. What is one small purchase you can skip today to buy yourself just a little more freedom tomorrow? Thanks for joining me on this explainer, and I'll see you in the next one.